Mr. Clerk, how about ring the bell, please? Okay, members, House will come to order. House will come to order, and members will please take your seats. Chairman Hatchett, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 916.
I'm going to repeat that one for clarification. Make sure I get it right, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Hatchett moves that this House disagree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 916. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 916 to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Chairman Hatchett is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate finally passed HB 916, the FY25 budget, and we need to go to work.
Was not the document you sent to them a perfect document?
I believe it was, Mr. Speaker, but they didn't think so. We're going to get to work after one more move, I think, and definitely get a document that's perfect.
Appreciate the chairman's work. On the gentleman's motion that the House disagree to the Senate substitute, is there any objection? Chair is noting the House has disagreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 916. Representative Franklin is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recommend that we move to agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House.
Let's see. Senate substitute on. I'm going to help you. Go ahead. You got it.
All right. H. Bill 285, agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House.
Okay, we're moving. The gentleman has moved that the House agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House on HB 285. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 285 to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 20 and Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Public Retirement System Investment Authority Law.
Representative Franklin is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Okay, thank you. So my original House bill was stripped in the Senate via a floor amendment and replaced with an investment measure and a bill to increase legislative retirement pay. What we've done here is amend the Senate amendment and replace the language with 3 important wildlife measures that were vetted and passed by our House Committee on Game, Fish, Parks, and overwhelmingly supported in the House floor. The First Amendment updates the effective date of the code section dealing with hunting with air guns by extending a scheduled sunset to 2028. Second, the amendment makes the color fluorescent pink an acceptable color that can be worn while deer hunting. Third, the amendment updates language relating to catching catfish with a bow and arrow in Georgia rivers and lakes. And colleagues, I ask for you to once again give your favorable consideration to these 3 simple measures. Thank you.
Gentlemen, will you yield for a couple of questions?
Yes, sir, I'll yield.
Let's see. To your right, Chairman Meeks is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
On section 5, line 60, you strike channel catfish and flathead. Can you explain the difference between those 2 species?
I tell you what, I can't, but I imagine anybody that hunts these things and shoots them, they can. But thank you for that observation.
It's a catfish. Representative Fry to your left, Representative Spencer Fry is recognized for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Isn't it true that I cannot wait to change all my hunting gear from orange, which is the color I hate, to bright pink, which is way more acceptable being from Athens?
Absolutely.
Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Representative Franklin, that's on me. You have no further questions.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I'll yield the will.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? Hearing none, the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 285 as amended by the House, all those in favor will say yes, those opposed will say no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House, the yeas are 162, the nays are 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 285 as amended by the House. Representative Hilton is recognized for a motion. Representative Hilton.
Senate substitute is amended by the House. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a motion to agree to House Bill 1122, Senate sub as amended by the House.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1122 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to secondary and elementary education so as to provide for funding requirements.
Representative Hilton, will you explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1122 passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support. It helped our charter schools. On its way over to the Senate, it picked up House Bill 1186, which deals with school performance ratings. That GOSA, in conjunction with DOE, must produce a single score. The Senate amendment on the floor was DOE must also produce the disaggregated components of that single score. We were comfortable with that. It passed the Senate unanimously.
Don't worry about
The House then is amending it with instructions from the governor's office to make some changes to a couple lines that have no significant impact to the bill. With that, I ask for your favorable support and will yield for any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is yielded the will. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1122 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 1122, agreeing to the Senate substitute as amended by the House, the yeas are 141, the nays are 24, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1122 as amended by the House. Representative Ballard is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got Senate Bill 464. I move that this House agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Senate Bill 464 to be entitled an act to amend Article 17 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to teachers and other school personnel so as to establish a school supplies for teachers program.
Representative Ballard is recognized to explain the House amendment.
Okay. The House amendment simply adjusts the dates of the creation list of 5 screeners in the Georgia Early Literacy Act. We've adjusted these dates to make it easier for our districts and our teachers to get training. The Senate amendment creates an executive committee for the Georgia Literacy Council. If there's no questions, I'll yield the will.
You do have a question to your left. Representative Becky Evans is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Representative Ballard. Do you yield?
I do.
Yes. Could you just tell us in the lines about the executive committee? Could you refer us to that, please?
Okay. This creation of the executive committee, which will be the voting members of the council, it's the first section of the bill. 1 person will be designated by the governor, 1 designated by the president of the Senate, 1 by the speaker, a representative from the State Board of Education, and the chairperson of the Literacy Council will be those 5.
Okay, I'm sorry. What lines are those? Would you be willing? I'm just.
It's section 1 starts on line 24 of the Senate version.
I don't see.
It's AM 490167.
We have LC 550302S on our desks.
That's the House version. That's the House amendment, or the House version. You want the Senate one. It should be right behind that.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lady has no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Ladies yield to the will. Is there any objection to adoption of the House amendment? Chair hears none. The House amendment is adopted. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendments to Senate Bill 464 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members have voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentlelady's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment as amended by the House, the yeas are 166 and nays are 1. The House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Senate Bill 464 as amended by the House. Chairman Perkle is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recommend, I make a motion this House agree to the Senate substitute of HB 51.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 51 to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education, so as to authorize local boards of education to use vehicles other than school buses for the transport.
Representative Perkle is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is a bill that we passed unanimously in this House that allows school systems to transport students in something other than a school bus, given these conditions, wildly acceptable amongst school systems, small and large. Senate made one small change. It's in Section 1, provides that the GISA be an affiliate member of the National Federation of High Schools, as they have for over a decade. That's a good bill. Ask you to vote green. Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, sir.
Representative Park Cannon to your left is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization?
About the National Federation of High Schools? Yes, ma'am. This is the one that provides rulemaking and safety for intercollegiate so that a school can go and do athletics or debate in another state.
Okay. Do you further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Has that organization made any statements about gender in sports?
You know, I wouldn't rightly know that.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you. Green, please.
He's a farmer, you can tell. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51, the yeas are 166, The nays are 4, and the House has agreed. Representative Brad Thomas is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion to agree to Senate substitute to House Bill 385.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 385 to be entitled an act to amend Title 47 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to retirement and pension so as to add appropriate references to the United States Space Force.
Representative Thomas is recognized to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reference to the Space Force Reserve was removed from the bill. The Space Force will not have a reserve component, otherwise the bill is exactly the same. With that, I'll take any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
All right. May the force be with you all. I yield the well.
Thank you. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 385. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 385, the yeas are 168, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute. Chair recognizes Chairman Carpenter for a motion.
I come to ask that we agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 404.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 404 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 7, Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to landlord and tenant so as to provide for a duty of habitability for certain rental agreements.
Representative Carpenter is recognized to explain the House's agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come before you today with a very important piece of legislation that this body passed out last year. There may have been one no vote, but I think it was pretty close to unanimous. For the first time in Georgia code, we're going to put fit for human habitation for the rights of tenants across the state. It's an important issue brought to light with the AJC and the dangerous dwellings, and really important piece of legislation that our Speaker and Majority Leader Efstration helped move through the House. Got it over to the Senate last year. You know, politics are politics, but today we're here to vote on a substitute that made a big change to it. It added a year because they held it a year, so I appreciate your favorable consideration on it.
Gentlemen, yield for a question. This would be a good one.
Yes, sir.
Representative Yasmin Neal, to your left, is recognized for a question.
Whoa, I never even looked that far. I got a crick in my neck.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Is it not true that I worked on this bill in conjunction with the Speaker of the House? And I want to say thank you so much for the work that we were able to do together. And I'm so glad to see it back. I urge our colleagues to say yes.
Thank you for your work on this legislation as well. Yeah, it's a great piece of legislation for all Georgians. And I yield the well.
Mr. Chairman, is this the Safe at Home Act that you worked so diligently on? And any numbers of members, including Representative Yield, is so important to Georgians all over this state?
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. I mean, we always try to say Georgia's the best place to work and play, but sometimes for some folks it's not the best place to live. And so this legislation will move that ball forward so we can protect Georgia renters. And I appreciate your help on this legislation.
Thank you for your persistence, Mr. Chairman. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 404, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 404. The yeas are 168, the nays 1. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute. Congratulations, House. Thank you for your work on this important piece of legislation. Give yourselves a hand. Chairman Chuck Martin is recognized for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 1267.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1267 to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to state government so as to repeal Chapter 13A relating to tax tribunals.
Representative Martin is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Ladies and members of the House, we voted this on the 27th, I believe, of February with a unanimous vote. This is the enabling legislation to move the tax tribunal from the executive branch into the judicial branch. The Senate helped us out and made some clarifying language in judiciary. It would be wrong for the Senate Judiciary Committee to be able to help us out a bit with that, but it just accomplishes what we did on February 27th. I'd stand for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman has no questions.
I yield the well and ask for the House's favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1267. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the motion to agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1267, the yeas are 170, nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute of House Bill 1267. Chair Lady Dempsey is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a motion to agree to the Senate substitute to HB 1344 as amended by the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1344 to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 2, Title 37 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions relative to the administration of mental health.
Representative Dempsey is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
This is a bill that we passed for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. The simple changes that were made are on page 3 of the bill, line 44 and 45. It simply added the chairperson of the State Board of Pardons and Parolees to the list of members that are able to have someone be in their place when they cannot be there for board meetings.
Lady has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
She's yielded the will. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1344, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? For what purpose does Representative Holly rise? He waits. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1344, the yeas are 165, the nays are 2. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute. Okay, members, if you're close to your seats, I would appreciate it if you assume your seats in the House. We have a very special afternoon order. If there are many members in the anteroom that may need to come back into the chamber, now would be the appropriate time. We all are aware that we have members of this body, members of our family, that will not be returning. And we've heard from several members that will be doing just that over the last few weeks and the last month. And I have one today that we're going to recognize so he can come to the well, tell us about some memories, and talk to us about the future. With that, I'm going to recognize the minority leader of this House, Representative James Beverly. Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Beverly, I want to thank you for your service to this state. I've met your family. I know you're going to introduce them. I want to thank you for that service. Thank you for your dedication to Georgia. A number of years you've been here representing the folks down in Bibb County, and your service does not go unnoted. You've made a difference, and I'm personally proud to call you a friend and thank you for your service to the state and for the betterment of our citizens. Representative Beverly.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. You know, in life, you got to have a wingman, and y'all don't realize it, but the Speaker's my wingman. And every once in a while, he told me years ago when we were fighting, when he was the leader, Chuck, we were fighting over some bills trying to get through the House on crossover. And we got 12 bills passed on one day, and me and him were, I mean, you guys can't even imagine the long nights we had. And afterwards, he said to me, you know, I know how you fight when you're sober. And I said, what? I know how you fight when you, okay, never mind that, I'll stop. Okay. He is a good man and a dear friend. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I didn't have time to prepare remarks. I mean, this is the craziest thing. I'm here today and I'm sort of overwhelmed by sadness. I did not see that coming for a better part of a year. I have contemplated what I've done in this House, where we are as a state of Georgia, and what does the future look like. And in that space, what I can say to y'all, without a doubt, is I laid it all on the line. Is that I know within myself that I was faithful of the little things. And so I suspect that God will have me do something else. what you don't know, and I want to share just a few things from the last few days. As you guys know, many of you may or may not know, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. And so today around 4 o'clock this morning, the Francis Scott Key Bridge came down. I've been across that bridge. We've been across that bridge numerous times. The only way you can sort of get into Baltimore from the airport is Scott Key, or you got to go under the Harbor Tunnel. Neither one of them are fun. But today the bridge came down. And so for those people who lost their lives and are still looking for stuff, thank God no one in my family was there. But it was a tremendous, harrowing day. So to the folk in Baltimore, we're praying for you here in Georgia. Y'all don't have to stand up. Y'all sit down. The last few days, the reason why I hadn't prepared any remarks, I'm going to tell you about what happened. And this is not to tell you this in a morbid sense. It's just the reality of where I am. On Thursday, I got a call from my mom. And she told me I need to get to Raleigh, North Carolina, because my cousin was turning 60 years old and he wanted me to come. And so I said, well, I'm right in the middle of a session. I can't come. She said, well, he has prostate cancer. And he's going to tell the family about what's going on. So y'all know how we do. We jump, we lean right into it. We get up there, and I get up there, and he's going through what he's got to go through, and we'll know that as a family soon enough, how he's going to prevail. But what you don't know is about 6 weeks ago, one of my dear friends was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she is a very dear, dear friend of mine. Yesterday, today is Tuesday, right? Yesterday I was in the hospital from 4:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock last night with her family because I have a particular skill set around the nomenclature of disease that I could lend to her family to help them make sense out of her having the lower third of her left lung removed. And I'm not saying that in a morbid sense because every last one of us in this house has made a tremendous sacrifice. And to those around us, we've all been through something. And that's why we are members, and that's why we are family. And it is not lost on me the toll that it takes on every last one of us to serve in this capacity, to serve our districts the best we can, trying to form a more perfect union. In 2011, I came in a special election. I sat right over there. It was better than D block, Trey. It was A block, buddy. And I sat right there, right where you are, Sue Hung. And I was the only, where's Sam? There's Sam. I was the only Democrat that sat in that area. And if y'all don't know it, my hue was a little bit different than everybody over there, mostly. I was the only bright spot in a sea of Republicans. And Sam was my seatmate, Jason Shaw and Amy Carter. And I got frustrated one day. I said, man, we got to get some more Democrats over here, you know. And we had just changed the rules, Mr. Speaker, where you had to have a caucus to go out to dinner. Before that, in a couple of years, you could, like, people take you out to dinner, but now you need a caucus. It was a foolishness. So Sam looks at me, I look at him, like, man, we should start our own caucus. I said, what should you call it, Bev? I was like, let's call it the Zebra Caucus. I'm the only stripe on a zebra, right? And that lasted for 4 or 5 years. And then Sam got in the well, and Jason says, y'all remember the cattle bill, right? But nobody can forget that bill. And Sam gets in the well, and he said, Bev, he has this Black Angus. I said, Black Angus, what is that? He's like, these big old cows. I said, man, I'm going to ask him a question. So we're encouraging, everybody's over there laughing, fooling around, which they're still doing. The A block has not changed. Y'all guys, calm down, okay? You know, especially you, buddy. Ridley, where's Ridley at? Never mind. You guys, that A block is always crazy, but Sam gets in the well, and Sam, I say, Sam, what's the difference between like a regular cow and Black Angus? He said, Beth, once you go black, you never go back. And this place went bananas. And that began a long time over there. I think the only person left over there is Corbett. And in 12 years, the only person left is Corbett, and he's my brother from another mother. Good to see you, brother. Now, let me talk a little bit about where we are, where I am, and then sort of where we'll go from here, where I go from here. There's one thing that no one in this room will be able to do for as long as you live. You've never been able to do it. You won't be able to do it today, and I guarantee you, you won't be able to do it tomorrow. Anyone know what that is? Someone? No one? Okay. Small crowd, thanks. What you will never be able to do, no matter how hard you try, is see your own face. Never. So you have to rely on people around you to help you to see who you are in space and time, because you'll never, ever, ever be able to see your own face. Just a reflection. And your reflection can come off of 2 or 3 or 4 different medium. Y'all know I'm an eye doctor, so I can talk about this all day, but I won't. But the 3 or 4 reflections that I get to see all the time is the 4 folk who sit up here with me today. The first one is my former wife, Michelle Prettyman. And Michelle, just wave, because I don't know you. Look, Al and Billy was like, how you messed that up? I said, y'all know me. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But Michelle said to me, maybe about 6 or 7 months ago, she said, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing all right. And she lives in New York. She's a professor at Fordham, African-American studies. She's a big-time professor in the whole film stuff. She was in South Africa, something like this. Anyway, she's doing wonderful things. But she said, how are you doing? I said, I guess I'm doing all right. She said, you still want to do this? And I couldn't come up with a why. Like, why are you continuing to do this? And I said, well, just talk to me straight. What do you think? She said, it might be time for you to come home. Then my kids started. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Micah, go ahead, raise your hand. Micah finished Morehouse a few years back. He lived with me during COVID. So when we came home, he had to live with me for a year in COVID. Now, let me tell you something about raising a man from Morehouse. You got to raise a man. And I would say, hey, Micah, it's time to wash the dishes. Look, there you go. L, y'all know the ones in it. Roger, Bruce. He would never wash the dishes until I had to, but it's fine. He's now a man. He works at Meta. My daughter, Maya, graduated from NYU. Maya, raise your hand. Maya is a ceramicist, whatever, right? So she's an artist, and she has shows, and we went to New Mexico last year. She sold a trinket for like $5,000. I was like, what? What am I doing with my life, Mr. Speaker? These talented kids. And then my son, Jacob, he graduated from Temple 2 years ago. And yeah, he's a good man. He graduated, the day after he graduated, he got a $9,000 scholarship. What? So Michelle and I like, well, that's our money. He was like, hey, Dad, I got to still pay for rent. I was like, that's your money. And so he's a very wise, smart kid, and I love him. What y'all don't know is when they were growing up, I would go to the eye doctor office to my practice, and every Saturday we would have Dr. Beverly's lesson for the kiddies. And he reminded me of that just a few days ago. And he said to me something that was very profound, which I never would have thought he would say this about me, or my kids would think this about me, because I'm just being a dad. He said, Dad, you have lived your life in a way that sometimes when I get in trouble, I ask myself, what would my dad do? And it makes me go in a direction where I'm following my true north. And that's profound. So thank you, Jacob. With my family, y'all have become my extended family. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't change it. I can't rearrange it. It is what it is. And I am grateful, so deeply grateful to each and every one of you. So what I want to do is I was going to try to name everybody in here who has impacted me. We would be here until tomorrow. And so, Mr. Raleigh, I'm going to ask you to do no, I'm just kidding. Do a roll call vote. No, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think for just a moment. If you have impacted my life, and I'm going to go through a couple categories. Just if you've impacted my life, just acknowledge in yourself, I know I've impacted him. Now, this is for my friends and my enemies alike, right? And it's enemies, but it's political, so it's not really long term, I hope. But it's friends and enemies. So if you've impacted my life, I want you to acknowledge this. First group, I want to have yourself acknowledged as black women. So if any black woman in here, everyone, that you've impacted my life, just like, yeah, it'd be me. Okay, all right. Next, black men. Okay, Democrat. I'm gonna start with Democrats because that's the superior. Okay, just okay. All right, so Democrats. All right, white women. All right, white WMDs. Y'all know what WMDs are? Oh, man. White male Democrats. I'll come to WMRs in just a second. But the WMDs, Mr. Speaker, now y'all got to do something about this gerrymandering, man, because the Democratic Party is now left with two WMDs. Y'all take care of my people, please, okay? Right. The Asian, Latinx. Again, if you've impacted my life, please acknowledge that in your soul. For those who don't know, if you've impacted my life, you might not have, because I haven't spent that much time with you yet, but it's coming. And then on the Republican side, same thing. Black women, white men, Asian, Latinx. Now, there's another category I'm going to come up with right now on the spot. Those who don't know what you are, that's fine too. Because if you don't know that you impacted me, you have. Trust me, you have. And I'm grateful, deeply grateful. Now, for those in the audience who have impacted me, the question I have to you is, have I impacted you as well? And if I have, those people who said, yeah, there's an impact you had on me, I want y'all to stand up. Stand up. Stand up right now. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. No, it's not a secret vote, Al. It's not a secret vote. 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 Okay. Y'all are my family. I love you. 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 And y'all can't change it. You can't rearrange it. It is what it is. Y'all sit down. Collectively, we represent Georgia. And I am profoundly grateful that I have an extended family beyond the ones who allowed me to serve for a dozen years. So I honor y'all. I salute y'all today. I am glad to be gone, but it's coupled with a profound sadness because I leave y'all, my extended family. So, Mr. Speaker, I am grateful to you, again, for being my friend. And to the folk who are in this room, I am profoundly grateful. We will make Georgia a more perfect union soon enough. I love you, guys, and with that, I yield the well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Leader, if you'll join me just for a second. You know I don't like to take pictures. You know, one of the things we share with each other is this family. But one of the other things that I've found, and many of you have found, as you've traveled around this state to visit with members in their communities. For me, that's what it's about, is my community. And you can view that from the larger sense of our country and our state, but the people we represent. And the knowledge about those folks, the knowledge about their issues, and the vision you have to solve those issues. I've had the privilege to be in James's community. and to understand and listen to him and know that he understands. He cares very deeply about the issues in his community. But I also know he cares very deeply about the issues across our state. For me, that's the measure of a person. They understand and are willing to look deeply and honestly into the issues that impact the people they care about, their neighbors. And I just want to thank Leader James Beverly for his caring for his neighbors, for his desire to make their lives better. And I'll just tell you, I think you have. Thank you for your service to Georgia. We look forward to the remainder of today and day 40, and certainly to your service for the remainder of your term. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your friendship. We're going to carry on with the work of this day. You can come down and we'll greet the leader for a few minutes, and then we'll get started up here again. Mr. Leader, I didn't know you had so many friends. To the Beverly family, we appreciate y'all being here. Thanks for coming down for your dad. I know he appreciates it. Thank you here. Safe travels to y'all. Okay, the House will come back to order. House will come back to order. I think House will come to order. I'm going to ask the clerk members will please take your seats. Thank you for greeting Leader Beverly and his family. Members will please take your seats. Mr. Clerk, let's take a shot at it. Why don't you read the caption to Senate Bill 37, SB 37.
Senate Bill 37 to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 16 and Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs, so as revised qualification requirements of the office of sheriff. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Collins is recognized to present the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I bring to you the substitute to Senate Bill 37, a very simple piece of legislation that we have changed a little bit in the House, in the Public Safety Committee. What we're doing in the first section of the bill is we're allowing a court supplement to be given to the sheriffs for covering an additional court. It just gives one additional court, so they'll be receiving a supplement for a total of 2 courts. Section 2 is a little piece of legislation I thought would be pretty important to some of the metro areas and populous cities around the state. It deals with public safety law enforcement that continue to run the blue lights once they leave a jurisdiction. Currently, right now, there's no legislation that addresses the illumination of a solid blue light. I can't tell you how many times over the last several years coming to the Capitol down here in the mornings, I would look up in my rearview mirror and I would see a solid blue illuminated light. And I did what I was supposed to do and what I was trained to do. I got over, only to see that the law enforcement person who was driving into their jurisdiction was just on their way to work, or maybe they were coming home. So what we're trying to do with this piece of legislation is to protect the integrity of the blue light. We don't prohibit them from running that solid blue light in their jurisdiction when they're on patrol. And matter of fact, I probably think that's a good idea in some of the jurisdictions around here to let folks know who the police is. But that's what Section 2 does. Section 3 of this legislation will simply be another bill that we had heard earlier that allows for the jailers to facilitate the arrest of someone. A lot of jurisdictions around, this was another representative's bill we put into this one. A lot of jurisdictions around are having problems with someone who goes to the jail to turn themselves in for a charge, and they're having to radio and get personnel off of the patrol to come and take these folks into custody. This just simply gives jailers the ability to do that. They can also take someone into custody who has violated a law who is already in jail. So it really helps our public safety. And Mr. Speaker, that's all the bill does, a good piece of legislation that we have changed since it came over from the Senate. I'd ask for the body's favorable consideration. If there are no questions, I'll be happy to yield the well.
The gentleman has a question to your left, if you'll yield.
Yes, I will.
Representative Park Cannon has a question for you. Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
I do.
Thank you. On section 2, the lines 27, it says it shall be unlawful, but what's the penalty? What's the...
Well, most of these situations where you're dealing with someone who is running a blue light or a red light or an orange light, and it's in violation of the code section, the Department of Public Safety is the one that deals with that.
Okay. Do you further yield?
I sure do.
So can you clarify what would be the penalty for doing this unlawful act?
I would assume that the commissioner of the Department of Public Safety would take a look at a complaint if it was filed by an individual or by another agency or by a group of people and take the appropriate action he deems necessary to facilitate remedying the situation.
Okay. And do you further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
And for the section 3 with the jailers
Yes, ma'am.
having additional arrest powers,
Right.
who do those arrest powers currently live with?
Well, currently you have jailers who are post-certified, and they are inside the jail. This just allows post to allow those folks to take those people into custody, and it's just a post-certification that's going to be changed to allow for that. And it's inside the guard line too. So these jailers are not out patrolling. These are just people that are working in our jails throughout the state.
Okay, do you further yield to clarify?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying that this provision is necessary because, why?
Well,
I'm trying to get some clarity
this-
here
this
on
pr-
who
this-
the powers currently live with.
This particular section of the bill is necessary because currently, right now, jailers cannot initiate an arrest. So if you have a jailer who has been to school, they've got training, and they're working inside a jail, they're working the counter at the jail, someone comes in and says, hey, I have an arrest warrant out for me right now, and I want to turn myself in. Well, that jailer is responsible for, looking after those prisoners in the jail system. They cannot initiate an arrest now. So what this will do will allow them the power to do that.
Thank you for the clarity. So who does the arrest power currently live with? Is that the sheriff or?
That's the sheriffs and the
Thank you.
deputies,
That
those
was the
kind of
question.
things. Yes.
Thank you for
These
answering.
these people are still deputies. They're just jailers.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Gentleman has another question to his left I think will be helpful.
Yes.
Chairman Tyler Paul Smith is recognized for a question.
To my friend from the city of Gold, do you yield for a question?
To my friend from Harrelson County, I most certainly do.
Thank you, sir. Is it not true that the official code of Georgia has default provisions for fines and sentencing for both misdemeanors and felonies in this state?
I believe the gentleman knows of what he speaks.
Thank you.
Representative Gullett, who sits right behind you, I think, has a question, if the gentleman will yield.
Gentleman, yield.
To my friend from Paulding County.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say thank you for this bill. Is it not true that not only has my county asked for this, one of my jail administrators, as far as the jailing arrest powers, is so important to our communities, but especially important to the smaller communities throughout the state. In my county of about 185,000 people, is it not true that we have only 4 deputies at any given time in a jail? And so when things arise inside the jail, or people surrender themselves to the jail, deputies are called from off the street oftentimes to handle those situations. Is that not true?
As usual, the gentleman knows of what he speaks.
Thank you for the bill.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would yield the well and ask the body's favorable consideration to the updated version of Senate Bill 37.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Thanks for the explanation. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 37. The yeas are 161, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 417?
Senate Bill 417 by Senator Albers, the 56th Robertson, the 29th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 82106 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating the reporting of accidents relative to elevators, dumbwaiters, escalators, and man lifts. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The gentleman from Baldwin County, Representative Ken Vance, is recognized to present the bill. Representative Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and fellow representatives. I come to you today with Senate Bill 417, and what it does, very briefly, is requires reports of accidents on elevators, escalators, moving sidewalks, and so forth to be filed by the end of the next business day. The bill also creates a new misdemeanor for detonating fireworks within 150 feet of an emergency medical technician, firefighter, or law enforcement officer when detonation is for the purpose of hindering or disrupting that first responder's duties. It also revises the licensing requirements relating to the display of fireworks and pyrotechnics, and a license for the use of certain specific effects in production of a motion picture or television production. And it also prohibits certain fire-propelled devices. The legislation revises, finally, the inspection and certification requirements relative to boilers and pressure vessels, and it allows for the dissemination of certain information related to the hazardous chemicals in written or electronic form to public employees. This bill is really initiated in the is an agency bill from the insurance commissioner. And Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, the insurance commissioner, John King, and I would really appreciate your favorable support of this bill.
Gentlemen, yield.
Yes, sir.
Representative Jasmine Clark to your left. Representative Clark has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know you said that this bill does talk about fireworks displays, like public fireworks displays. A lot of the people in my district are really concerned about people doing what looks almost like professional fireworks, but in their yards, and it's causing fires and things like that. Does this bill contemplate anything about that?
Yes, ma'am, it does. What it does, it will actually give law enforcement a little more leverage, if you will, to stop those kind of things, because you know and I know that the pyrotechnics that are being created today and sold on the street are much more elaborate than the firecrackers you and I had as a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for your question.
Thank you so much for the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Bernal to your left. There's a question. Ladies
Thank
recognized.
you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is along that same line, because we have people who are having fireworks shows in our neighborhood. And so the one thing that I find that's a problem is that the smoke is so heavy that you can't even see the house where it is. So based on timing and documentation, if we know, say, the next day, because the police officer's not going to be able to really see if they come in there, can we still report it then?
Yes, ma'am. I think this bill does address the issue that you're talking about with the smoke and the noise and everything else. Yes, ma'am. I think it does.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Hagan to your right has a question. If the gentleman will yield.
Do you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
This may be a question more for those of us who live in rural areas. And I'm sorry for having not been able to get through this more quickly, but does this bill address any of us who may live in rural parts of the state who like to set off fireworks at our homes, not in a neighborhood. Could you address
You mean
that?
an individual shooting
Yes.
fireworks at their house in the
Yes,
country?
exactly.
I think this bill does contain that common sense measure that treats something, an incident like you're talking about, in a little more common sense way than it would be in downtown Atlanta in a subdivision.
Understood. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I yield the well, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
you had no further questions.
Good.
Gentleman's yielded the well.
Thank you.
Well, you did have one question. I'm sorry, but you're yielded the well now. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 417, the yeas are 157, the nay is 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 358? 358.
Senate Bill 358 by Senator Burns, the 23rd, Gooch, the 51st, Robertson, the 29th, and others, being entitled an act to amend subpart 1 of Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the State Election Board so as to remove the Secretary of State from the board. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Chairman Leverett is recognized to present the bill. Chairman Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for waiting. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm asking your favorable support for Senate Bill 358. Despite the title, this bill no longer deals with elections, but instead is a department bill for the Ethics Commission. It makes some changes to filing deadlines and schedules for reports within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission, which, as you know, was formerly the Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission. So what the bill will do, not this year, but next year, is it will standardize reporting dates for every single candidate, office holder, and incumbent in the state. All reporting dates will be the same for every office every year: January 31, April 30, July 31, and October 15. Local filers, county commissioners, city council members, board of education members, will continue to file locally through December 31, 2025, and then they will start filing disclosure reports with the commission. The reason for this is some of the local filing officers have been giving wrong advice and information to candidates. They also are not turning in the candidates who are late, and so it's sort of creating two different systems, and we're trying to make that more uniform. An important issue to some of your local officials and to this GMA was that local filers still have the exemption or modified filing requirements if they file the notice that they're not going to raise or spend more than $25,000, and if it's $2,500, and if it goes from $2,500 to $5,000, there's a modified filing requirement. We're also putting PACs on the same schedule, and they now have to have a separate bank account like candidates do. We also are trying to make the schedule for failed candidates and office holders to be the same, that January 31, April 30, July 31, and October 15. Currently, there's some different requirements depending on whether you retire or run and don't win, and we're trying to just make everything more uniform so it's easier for the commission, and it's also easier for the public to keep up with and find the reports that have the relevant information. Personal financial disclosure statements also will be due at the same time every year, April 1, no more 15 days after qualifying or by July 1. So there's one date to remember every year for your personal financial disclosure statement. Statewide constitutional officers have a personal financial disclosure statement that will change somewhat because it'll give a little more detail about ranges of various investments. And finally, for lobbyists, we're also trying to make their filing more uniform. Right now, there's different filing frequencies depending upon what kind of lobbyist you are and what entity you lobby. We're just making it now they have to file a monthly report. So we think this will make it easier for us, easy for the lobbyists, easy for everybody, including the public, in trying to access this information. Again, it will not take effect until next year, so don't think it would apply this year, but we think it'll just make the information a lot more accessible to everybody. So that is the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I'll yield for questions.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would ask your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 358.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The committee Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 358. The yeas are 166, the nays are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption of Senate Bill 341? 341.
Senate Bill 341 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and Bass of the 28th and others, to be entitled an act to amend various titles of the official code of Georgia annotated so as to revise committee names to repeal provisions relating to inactive boards, panels, authorities, centers, and commissions. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee sub.
Representative Hilton is recognized to present the bill. Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of this august body, I'm here to present to you Senate Bill 341. The crux of this bill is Senate Bill 23 that we passed the House and the Senate last year. It came up just a bit short as the governor actually vetoed it. That section he vetoed is not in this bill. This bill removes old boards and commissions that are no longer active or in place. The second component of this bill removes pre-filing, and we talked a little bit about that last year. And then the third component of the bill makes administrative changes to the Legislative Services Committee. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll stand for any questions.
Gentleman has a question. If he'll yield for Representative Nulowitz to your left. I think you know where she sits.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, I do.
I just wanted to clarify, does this legislation change anything about the maximums that can be contributed to a candidate in a county or municipal campaign? That's a question that I got from somebody back at home.
Oh, I don't believe it does, no.
I didn't think, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to clarification.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopt any substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 341, the yeas are 162, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 384? 384.
Senate Bill 384 by Senator Hickman of the 4th, Albers the 56th, Beach of the 21st, and others, be entitled an act to amend Chapter 19 and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to labor practices relative to public officers and employees so as to provide for the development and administration of the state of Georgia as a model employer program. This bill will be referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Gentleman from down in Bullock County, Representative Lehman Franklin, is recognized to present the bill. Representative Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I want to take a moment before presenting this just to mention that Charlie Miller, a lot of you know him. He's been working on this for a couple of years now, and if you don't know him, or those of you that do know him, know he's a man of great character. His father was Butch Miller, which was a car dealer with me, and I've known him for many years, so it's really an honor for me to be able to present this to you today. But the way this came about was it was a result of a Senate Workforce Study Committee from last year, and they were digging into how they could create more of a workforce environment for Georgia, and what they discovered was, according to the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, Georgia has close or over 150,000 working age men and women with disabilities, and out of that number, only 20,000 are currently working. So what this bill does is an effort to utilize that workforce to be able to allow them to come back to work. And what the bill does is it support state agencies through GAIN, the Georgia as a Model Employee Program, to utilize this talented pool by giving them the resources to recruit, hire, train, and retain these qualified individuals. This will be implemented and developed by the state ADA coordinator, an office that is already in existence, so it won't be creating a new one, by requiring them to submit a report on or before September of each year outlining data on training, accommodation and to assistance, recruiting, and retention. And through this report, we will utilize the best practices to help more of these individuals to be able to join the workforce. So this is a great bill. It's one you can really get behind and feel good about voting a yes on. And Mr. Speaker, if there's no further questions, I'll yield the will.
Yes, you have a couple of questions. Representative Cannon to your left has a question. Representative Park Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
I do.
Thank you. I want to show my respect to those living with visible and invisible disabilities, but to ask about line 31, which speaks to reasonable accommodations. I know there has been a long-term effort in this House to address reasonable accommodations for for pregnant people, and I was wondering if this bill will support those individuals as well.
From my understanding, it does not. It's only, so it does not, from my understanding, it's not the pregnancy people, it's just ones with disabilities.
Thank you, and do you further yield?
I do.
On line 34, it speaks to the state ADA coordinator. In which office are they located, and is that office a funded office of the state of Georgia?
It is, yes, it's an office that's already in existence, and it's, let me look it up for you. It is, I can't tell you, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Just the question was whether it was state funded or federal funded.
It's state funded.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, further yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Representative Holly, to your left in the back, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Sir, is it not true that this bill, it actually will help augment the state's workforce, that oftentimes we're having to look at the severe competition that we have, where literally, because of there's a lack of a talent pool, we have many workers who are actually traveling outside of the state into Georgia, but it's always good, and we can be able to have a workforce that's developed from our own locals, and especially those who are able to transition from the developmentally disabled into the workforce. Is that not true?
That is true, and you know, it's amazing that this bill hasn't been enacted before now, so I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 384, the yeas are 157, the nays are 1. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 10, Senate Bill 10?
Senate Bill 10 by Senator Jones, the 10th Jones, the 22nd Butler, the 55th, and others, being entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 11, and Title 16, and Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to offenses against public order and motor vehicles and traffic, respectively, so as to provide for an offense of knowingly attending and facilitating an illegal drag race. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Yasmin Neal is recognized to present the bill. Representative Neal.
Thank you to the Speaker. Thank you to this body. Today I bring you Senate Bill 10. Senate Bill 10 essentially adds reckless stunt driving to the already pre-existing drag racing code section this body passed prior. This addition covers all stunt driving, laying drags, and more that go beyond the typical drag racing we are familiar with. It also adds clarification to the code to protect those people who are not involved by adding present and actively participating, so not to unintentionally penalize passerbys, or people who are not associated with these acts. The goal is to go after people actually working and running said drag racing events and not innocent bystanders. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and if I have no questions, I'll yield.
The lady has no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Good job explaining the bill. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 10, the yeas are 149, the nays are 7. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 322? 322.
Senate Bill 322 by Senator Walker, the 20th, Gooch, the 51st, Albers, the 56th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 16 to Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to Sheriff's Retirement Fund of Georgia, so as to provide for an increase in dues. This bill having referred to the Committee on Retirement, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman Noel Williams is recognized to present the bill. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I bring to you Senate Bill 322 by Senator Larry Walker. This is increasing the sheriff's retirement bill. The fund was established back in 1963. The fund requires no state funding. What we're merely doing is we're increasing the fees from $37.50 to $65 per month, and then increasing the member dues from $45 to $65 per month. This also increases a death benefit from $15,000 to $25,000, and this is for the retirement fund for the sheriffs of the state of Georgia. And I yield for...
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well and ask for your favorable green vote on this bill. Thank you.
Gentleman's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 322, the yeas are 164, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 414?
Senate Bill 414 by Senator Kennedy, the 18th, Gooch, the 51st, Robertson, the 29th, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 18 and Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to state printing and documents so as to prohibit the collecting of certain personal information. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Matt Reeves is recognized to present the bill. Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I present to you the Nonprofit and Charitable Donor Privacy Bill. This was sponsored in the Senate by President Pro Tem John F. Kennedy. There was a somewhat similar House bill that went before the Governmental Affairs Committee, and when the Senate bill passed before crossover day, we worked off the Senate bill. Judiciary Committee heard the Senate bill. It implements two United States Supreme Court opinions, one NAACP versus Alabama in the 1950s that said, states, keep your hands off of nonprofit donor lists. The second is a more recent case, the Bonta case in 2021. You've got a handout in front of you that has the nonprofit and charitable groups from all around the country who supported, as friend of the court, briefs in that Bonta case in 2021. This supports protection for charitable donors. It says the Georgia governmental entities do not collect or publicize nonprofit donor lists with a few exceptions, and those few exceptions are campaign finance, any criminal investigations or court subpoenas or discovery. Multiple state agencies had input in the bill. They are listed in the bill. The Philanthropy Roundtable is the nonprofit donor rights group who requested the bill. Last week you approved a bill from them that Representative Kelly presented concerning donor intent. Donors nationally and in Georgia look to things like this to see if their privacy will be protected when they give to a nonprofit entity. So this will actually promote more donations to Georgia nonprofits in this age of cancel culture where a lot of people want to give anonymously. Nonprofit giving helps those in need. Those are the ultimate beneficiaries of nonprofit funds, whether it's education, housing, homelessness, helping the needy. Let's give people a hand up by supporting protections for nonprofit charitable givers. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I yield the well and request favorable consideration.
Gentleman has a question or two, if he'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Whip Park has a question to your left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Can you provide some clarification to me as to whether or not the exemption also applies to donations to leadership committees?
Any political committee that under federal law or state law is required to disclose their contributions, this bill would not abrogate that at all.
Thank you for the clarification. Does this essentially provide nonprofits the ability to disclose and not disclose?
Absolutely. Both the donors and the nonprofits can voluntarily disclose. What this bill does is it's limited to the government.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, if there are no further questions, I yield the well.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you.
He's yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If all members voted, if so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 4014. The yeas are 135, the nays are 32. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does Representative Saines rise?
To make a motion,
State your motion.
I move that Senate Bill 502 be recommitted to Rules Committee.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Senate Bill 502 to be entitled, an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3 of Chapter 5 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general authority, duties, procedure of the Department of Administrative Services.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 502 be withdrawn from the calendar and recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 354?
Senate Bill 354 by Senator Walker, the 20th, Strickland, the 17th, Kirkpatrick, the 32nd, and others to be entitled, an act to amend Chapter 10 and Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to cosmetologists and barbers so as to exempt from licensure persons performing certain limited responsibilities. This bill having referred to the Committee on Regulated Industries. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Representative Jeannie Earhart is recognized to present the bill. Representative Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored today to bring you a great job-creating bill for your consideration. A job that will create a bill that will create jobs for Georgians and that helps to sort of further enhance and grow our economy. It provides for very narrowly defined exceptions to licensure for certain actions within the cosmetology practice, those being blow drying of hair and the applying of makeup. Two practices that are currently allowed in Georgia, in code, and allowed without a license for those that are working in both the film industry or who are engaging in these practices in retail establishments. For those of my female colleagues that have ever been in an Ulta or a Macy's to the cosmetics counter, you'll know what I'm talking about. SB 354 will create more jobs and opportunities in our state, especially for lower income workers. Many of these workers are entrepreneurial women who do not have the time and resources to go to school. Other states that have enacted similar reforms have seen economic growth, including more women-owned businesses like blow-dry bars and bridal hair and makeup businesses. SB 354 provides important reform that will help people get to work faster and incur less debt. Research shows that the average cost to attend a cosmetology school in Georgia is nearly $18,000. Our cosmetology licensing laws force many aspiring artists to take on student loan debt that they struggle to then pay back. While this educational investment may make sense for those who want to cut and color hair or work with chemicals, it does not make sense for people who simply want to blow dry hair or apply makeup. Research has shown that some of the greatest occupational licensing burdens for lower income workers in Georgia affect those in the beauty industry. It takes 1,500 hours to work as a cosmetologist, but only 150 hours to work as an EMT. These kinds of heavy licensing burdens do not make sense for people who only wish to style hair and apply makeup. Folks, this is an important reform, a good for business reform, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and I'm happy to yield to any questions.
Lady has a couple of questions. Representative Park Cannon to your left has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
Yes.
Can you name one or two communicable diseases that could happen based on this deregulation?
Right. I'm not aware of any, but I know that certainly certain cosmetic and beauty practices that involve putting chemicals on the skin, cutting the skin, things like threading and things of that nature, none of those things which are included in this bill. I know that there is an enhanced potential for harm that could come from communicable diseases in those, but these are considered low-risk activities.
Okay, do you further yield?
Yes.
So we just talked about hair, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about makeup. Do you know any communicable diseases that could come from the application of makeup that's unsanitary?
Right, I do understand that. No, I'm not aware of any particular diseases that come from the application of makeup. Again, I know that the greatest concerns that come within the cosmetic industry that have to do with damage and injury to the skin come from those who are engaging in practices like chemical peels and things of that nature. But thank you for your question.
Do you further yield?
I think I'm going to move to the next question because I know there's a couple that are waiting to ask.
Yeah, we have Representative Hughley to your left has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentle lady yield?
Yes.
Can you tell me why we should not be concerned about sanitation practices of those who are not licensed, who are going to be doing kitchen, beauty school, or whatever they're going to be doing, because you're talking about protecting the public. So what protections to the public do you think we're going to have if we deregulate in this manner?
Right. Certainly important safety practices are important for anybody that has a business, owns a business. It would be an issue for anyone who's working in this field in salons. Currently, we allow all of these practices to occur, as I said, in the film and movie industry and in retail environments. I think it's very important to understand what was actually cut and removed from this bill that may have existed in previous bills. Working with hot equipment like curling irons and flat irons, that has been removed. The application of chemicals, chemical peels, invasive procedures on the skin and the hair, that has all been removed. What we are talking about here is simply applying makeup that's available over the counter and working with a blow dryer.
Does the gentle lady further yield?
Yes.
It's been my experience that we should also be concerned about the temperature of blow drying. You know, different cultures have different concerns, but blow drying can damage hair if it's done improperly and at too high of temperatures. And so people in my community are concerned about that. Isn't that true?
And I can understand that. And certainly, I think it's important to remember that we're talking about items and equipment that likely every woman in this room has used every day of her life. And I know that that gives me some assurance.
Lady, further yield. You have a couple more.
Yes.
Representative Hagan to your right is recognized for a question.
Do you yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that there are already people practicing in public in these areas at department store counters without a license. This just opens that up to more entrepreneurs. So my question, if you will yield, is this. I have in my district, in Fitzgerald, Ben Hill County, a program that was started there. It's called the Flex Program, and it's kind of like Shark Tank for the public high school students to encourage entrepreneurship there. And one of the areas that I know these young people are interested in trying out a business is in cosmetology. And these are students of all demographics who would like to try their hand at this for this wonderful program that's spreading all over the state to our public schools. So my question is, if this bill would pass, would those students who are interested in trying out their hand at applying makeup and blow drying hair and styling it without the use of these harmful chemicals, would they be able to do that without a license if this bill passed?
Yes, they would. And the law would honestly provide them with an excellent opportunity to dip their toe into that market and to begin those processes. Yes.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Speaker, thank you so much. And I yield well.
You had some excellent questions, like from Representative Jason Ridley, but I'm glad you yielded well. I really didn't want to hear it. So that's the presentation of the bill. We'll now have speakers opposed and or those in favor of Senate Bill 354. Per the rules imposed by the Rules Committee, we will allow 30 minutes for those opposed and 30 minutes for those in favor. So Representative Rhonda Taylor is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise to speak against Senate Bill 354 because you're in my world now. my father stopped speaking to me because I came home with a 4-year education, college degree, and decided to go into the cosmetology field, which he thought was menial labor. Senate Bill 354, while it does afford an opportunity for some to earn an income without training or experience, it poses a very serious threat and a concern to our society. As you've heard from a couple of my colleagues, it says that heat, for example, is different on different types and textures of hair. Even if you were to burn to the scalp, this we know can open a wound and cause bacterial infections. This is a very serious issue. Blow drying, styling, and I know that the author said that it did not involve the curling apparatuses. On line 35, it definitely says that it allowed drying, arranging, curling, straightening, and styling with mechanical devices. You need training for this. If we were going to do anything with this legislation, it should have been crafting a program out for those who are interested in doing these particular tasks to do. A 6-week, 6-month course, whatever. But to say that a person can commit for 1,500 hours and then to do the same thing that a person can commit that does not do any hours, that's not fair. We get student loans with these when you go to school for cosmetology. It's not free. And a person goes in and takes the proper classes and training to be able to do everything. She also stated that we're already doing it. That doesn't make it right. Not at all. And those that are doing hair from home or in Macy's, they're doing it because they've gotten permission from the customer to do that. But to allow these individuals to work without any training, without any sanitation requirements, without the knowledge of basic disease, bacterial diseases, is very scary. And we're taking that risk by voting and passing this legislation. I have seen it. I have almost 25 years in the industry, not only as a technician, but as a director, as an instructor. This is a bad bill. Perhaps if we design something, crafted something that does make a pathway for such an obligation or opportunity, but this is not it. I strongly urge that you vote against Senate Bill 354. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Ladies yielded the well. Representative Park Cannon is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, members. I'd love for you to look around the room and look at the different hairstyles that you see. And maybe you can name some of those hairstyles. But there might also be some hairstyles that you know nothing about. You don't even know what they're called. Like, for example, what's on my head today. Most people would say these are locks. You would be wrong. These are sister locks. It is a very intricate method of interlocking that takes place. It's not the same as the gel and roll mechanism that many locks you see are made from. I stand here today with a number of cosmetologists who say the same thing about makeup. So today I'd like you to look around and see some different ways that makeup is being worn in this room today. Some people have no makeup on and are still able to vote on this bill. And there are many other individuals who do have makeup on. Either they put it on in their house, maybe they put it on in the anteroom bathroom, maybe they don't have any on at all. I stand here today with you with lashes on. I would love to ask some of the members, how do you think I got these lashes on? Do you think I glued them by myself? Do you think I went somewhere and a person who was licensed attached them for me? Do you think these are my natural lashes? These are the questions that should deeply be considered before we consider this piece of legislation. Because as much as I am excited for people to be able to get to work post-pandemic, are we really sending a message to Georgia's young people that the best they can do is some makeup or some hair with no licensure? Would you like for your daughter's wedding for someone with no licensure to do her hair or to do her bridesmaid's makeup? I don't think so. And so I want to point to some of the issues and the facts and the science, because it's getting loud, for people who don't have this hair or use makeup. I want to ask y'all, I asked a question, do you know of any communicable diseases that can come from makeup application or doing hair in an improper way? And the answer was no. Haven't we all heard of lice? Has anyone ever heard of scabies? These are all communicable issues that can come from this legislation. Now, those are some elementary, literally, communicable diseases that we see in our kindergartens, in our preschools, in our elementary schools. But there are some more intense ones that if you were paying attention when you came to Capitol today and yesterday, you saw members of the public with large poster boards that said that they are in school for this. And they had listed on there information about the school that they are coming from. And on that, they spoke about a number of different issues that can happen with the improper use of this type of procedures. Let's talk about osteotosis. Does anyone know what that is? Does anyone know what psoriasis is? Some people might know about psoriasis. What about leukoderma? Some people might know about rosacea. You've heard about rosacea? There's so many other areas of concern that we should be having in this body today. And it is not factual to say that these different communicable diseases will not be spread based on this legislation. I want to lastly just point out for the record that we were all misled by saying that there is no ability for the application of chemicals and using of flat irons and curling irons, where it is clearly written here in the bill. And to say that the film industry is doing this to dangle the carrot. Oh, the film industry. Now we're so worried about the film industry, day 39 of session, to dangle that carrot out there and say that the film industry needs this is simply not factual. The facts are as such. When we, as licensed professionals, look to engage in the film industry, we have our tools heat up to 450 to 500 degrees. This industry allows for apprenticeships. These apprenticeships allow for us to get $100 to get started, and the domino effect of this legislation will make it so that that apprenticeship program that does feed into the film industry will be at a halt. So today we need to be more clear about what we're doing. Perhaps we need to consult some more members of the public or of this body who have an understanding of it. Maybe we need to take a pause and wait until next year, but I, for one, will absolutely be voting in opposition, and I ask you to join me in voting in opposition to this measure so that we can appropriately address the workplace issues and the economic issues, as well as the health and science issues that are with this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The ladies yielded the well. Representative Monty Barnes is recognized to speak to the well, speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in opposition of this bill. One, because I have hair that I truly admire and take care of, and I would not want someone who has not practiced or gotten some kind of lesson to put their hands in my hair. I know some of you don't care about this. It doesn't directly affect you, and today is not the day for me to stand here and talk about my hair because it's raining outside, and when water hits my hair, it blows up and it's all afro-y and stuff. So, to get it straight, for my hair to get straight, you have to use over 400-degree heat in my hair, and once it hits the water again, it gets puffy again. So I have to put more heat in my hair. I do not want someone with no training putting over 400-degree heat in my hair. If my hair falls out, I will be walking around here grumpy. As much as I smile around here, I would not be smiling that day. Okay, on a more serious note, I am a scientist. I have practiced sterile and worked in sterile environments all of my career. Someone who is not trained to come in my lab and just work because our legislative body said they don't need a license, it does not fly in my career. So for someone to put their hands in my head and not have any lessons on sterility and how diseases transfer and how heat affects the human body, that is unacceptable. And because you all don't relate does not mean that we should be making legislation for those it does directly affect. Not only does disease come into my mind when I'm thinking about people who have not been trained, but the hundreds and thousands of women that will be affected if something devastating happens to their crown. And some demographics and some cultures consider their hair their crown. And so I would like for you all to talk to your colleagues that this directly affects. I would like to think that you would relate by putting yourself in the chair with someone who has no training and put that in your head. Not only do I agree with us creating a workforce pipeline, but creating a workforce pipeline with some training behind it, not just opening the doors for anybody to get into this field. If you had a nurse, would we take away the necessary training for a nurse to enter the pipeline? No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't want somebody who has not had proper training to put their hands on our bodies. So let's consider this as well. I'm standing here in opposition to this bill because I believe it's dangerous. We are also opening the doors for 14 and 15-year-olds to enter the field, and so that means 14 and 15-year-olds can take this job as well. So I want us to put some serious thought in the facts behind this bill. It's not safe. It creates dangerous situations for our health, and it also creates dangerous situations for people who are sitting in those chairs. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Ladies, yield to the well. Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to tell you to vote no on this bill because it is actually a very dangerous bill. Multiple resistant or methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also known as MRSA. MRSA. This is a highly contagious antibiotic resistant bacteria that if you are infected with it, can not only make you deathly ill, but it can actually paralyze you or kill you if it gets into your blood. This is a real thing. I'm not making this up. We do not want to make people vulnerable to catching methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also known as MRSA. Let me tell you why. Because when a person gets MRSA, it's not just them that can get it. Anyone who now comes in contact with that person and touches that infection or touches something that infection touched, so a towel in the same house, a doorknob, they touch their face, they touch the doorknob, you touch the doorknob, you touch your skin. This thing is highly contagious and very hard to treat and can kill you. This is a deadly bill. Let me tell you why. According to the American Academy of Dermatology, and according to research done in the Journal of Applied Microbiology, 9 out of 10 products, makeup brushes, the little brush that you use to do mascara, all of these things, those little sponges that you use, those things have bacteria and yeast and other types of fungus that are capable of causing illness. It can cause something as simple as a skin infection that you can't get rid of, all the way to the point of causing blood poisoning if it happens to get access to the inside of your body by way of a cut or even a little scrape. This is serious. When we are allowing people to apply things like makeup, we have to make sure that they are equipped with this knowledge. A basic understanding of this is very important. And if we don't do this, imagine what it would be like if you were a 14-year-old and you want to start your makeup business, and you go around and you start applying makeup to all of your friends, and then your friends catch a deadly infection. You're 14 years old. All you wanted to do was start a business. And now something really horrible has happened. You know who has failed you? The adults in the room. Because we need to have basic safety standards when it comes to this stuff. There is research that shows that makeup brushes can be dirtier than a toilet. Makeup brushes can be dirtier than a toilet. You need to understand that stuff before you start applying makeup to people other than yourself. Doing your own makeup is fine, but when you start sharing things, that is actually very dangerous. And we need to make sure that the people who are doing it understand this. There have been cases where people have almost lost their lives. There have been cases where people have actually had to have limbs amputated because of MRSA. This is not something we should be taking lightly. Please, please, please consider what we're voting on today. I know as a member of the minority party, we don't get an opportunity a lot of times to stop bad things from happening, but I'm telling you, y'all, this is really bad. I have a PhD in microbiology. This is literally what I do for a living, and I'm telling you, this is a bad bill. Please consider what we're voting on today. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Ladies yielded the well. That completes the presentations of those opposed to the bill. Now we're here for up to 30 minutes for those in favor. Representative Hagan is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I hadn't planned to speak in favor of this bill, but there are some things that I think ought to be addressed here. When we're talking about what is on the paper that we are considering now, we are talking about shampooing, blow drying, styling. We're talking about using the same products that any of us could leave this building right now and go to Target and purchase. That is what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. This bill does not get rid of a cosmetology license, which is an important license, but it takes approximately 1,500 hours of coursework to get that license. That's an expensive thing to do. It's a time-consuming thing to do, and I certainly am not suggesting that it's not a needed license, because it is, but we are talking about, again, very basic products and techniques that any of us could do in here right now. So to say that it's okay for someone to apply makeup at a store counter without a license is, and this is almost exactly what was just said from this well, is okay because they have the customer's permission. I would submit to you is actually an argue for why this bill makes good sense. Because we're talking about customers' permission. We're talking about something that is already taking place at department store counters around this country. I won't bring up the movie industry, but a license is not required there either for these basic techniques. So, I felt like that was a good argument in favor of this legislation. I do want to bring up a program. I alluded to it in a question that I asked the bill sponsor earlier. I would like to bring some attention to a program that started in South Georgia. It's called the Flex program, and this program is to show high school students that they can be business owners. It encourages entrepreneurship. It's about a 6-month-long program that takes place in the public school there, and it's extended, I think, now to 10 different school systems. And their goal, through the cooperation of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, is to expand it around the state. But this program encourages people to try a business, and I know because I've worked very closely as a judge in this competition, and with the founder of this program, that one of the businesses that these young people in rural Georgia are interested in starting is cosmetology. Well, obviously in high school they can't go get a 1,500-hour cosmetology license, but if they could, with the help of a mentor, work with these basic skills, blow drying, styling, applying makeup, we're talking about something that could be a way up for a lot of particularly young women in rural Georgia. This license is very important, but it is one that can be very exclusionary because of the cost of the training and the time that is involved. So again, important license, but I believe since we're talking about products and techniques that are available to us right now at any time, I do not feel like this is something that is dangerous. And to that, finally, and then I will step aside, Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about there's no training and a lot of diseases, and it does sound very scary, but I would refer you back to what the previous speakers have said. Someone can do these things at a store counter with no license today. So if it is that dangerous, I would hope that next session someone would drop a bill that would outlaw these practices at the department store counter, because they've been going on for decades, and if they're that dangerous, we certainly would want to bring a stop to it. So, Mr. Speaker, I just would like to encourage everyone here to vote in favor of this measure. It encourages entrepreneurship. It encourages people who may not have another opportunity to step into the valuable field of cosmetology where they may not otherwise have the opportunity. And I just ask you to vote in favor of this measure. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Ladies, yielded the well. Representative Misha Maynard is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was not planning to be up here today, but I can definitely speak with legitimacy, if you will. As a black woman, I love to wear my hair many different ways. You guys saw me wear my hair in braids. A lot of you said, you know what? I really like your hair in braids. Guess what? You do not have to have a license to get your hair braided. When I take my daughter to get her hair braided, some braiders braid your hair really tight. If you braid the hair really tight, you can do things to the scalp that are unhealthy. If anything, we should be looking at how people are braiding hair. But let's talk about this bill. In committee, it was a bipartisan bill. Democrats voted for this bill. Republicans voted for this bill. One of my concerns was the flat irons and the curling irons. It took a lot of debate, but we finally got the amendment passed to remove curling irons and flat irons. So that has been taken out of this. The other thing I want to say is to get your hair, inflation is going up. If you go to the hair salon, if a black woman in Atlanta, Georgia, goes to the hair salon to get her hair shampooed and washed, you will not believe how much it costs. It might cost $90 to $120 to get your hair washed. I know, you're looking confused. And so that's because those people are cosmetologists. And so this bill, the people that will blow dry hair and shampoo hair, they cannot advertise as a cosmetologist. They can't do that. They cannot charge, well, they can charge whatever they want, but most likely a citizen that is being selective of who's going to be in their hair, they're not going to go to the person that charges $90 to $120 because they're not a cosmetologist. They're just blow drying and shampooing hair. Another thing I want to bring up, and it's just kind of interesting that this bill is even here, but think about Dominican hair salons. A lot of people, half of the people in this room may know what Dominican hair salons are, half of you may not. A Dominican hair salon is when you go, and they call it a Dominican hair salon because it is a form of hairstyling that came from the Dominican Republic. These people, a lot of them, are not cosmetologists. They're blow drying your hair, and the way they blow dry your hair, you can also curl it. This bill means that these people, women, men from the Dominican Republic, legal immigrants, if they want to go into this blow drying business, now they don't have that upfront cost of the education. We like how they do our hair when we go to the Dominican hair salons. The other thing I want to mention, during committee, there were several young women that came to the committee saying, we work underneath cosmetologists. We work underneath hair designers. We cannot afford to go out and get a full-blown cosmetology license. And so guess what? There were several cosmetologists here that came to committee and said, we love this bill because we can train people in an apprenticeship sort of way. So I want to just wrap up and say, this is not deadly. There are a lot of deadly things that can happen in the world. I would not call this the deadliest bill of the year. There are some people that agree with me. What I would say is this allows a lot of young people that are interested in going into this industry to enter into it slowly without a huge upfront cost. The other thing I will say is I'm really happy that the amendment passed where it does not include curling irons, it does not include flat irons. My original amendment actually said 300 degrees or less. We could not put a temperature in the bill because how do you police a temperature? But you can police a curling iron or a flat iron. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. We've heard from both Those opposed and those in favor. Now we'll have the chairman's time. It's up to 20 minutes, right? For up to 20 minutes, the chair's time. Chairman Powell is recognized for the chairman's time. Chairman Powell. Y'all have heard the debate. This is an important bill. Chairman Powell is recognized for the chairman's time for up to 20 minutes. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. I've been telling people for 30 years, don't fool around with cosmetology bills. We saw it last year, and we're seeing it this year. So with that being said, I'm going to relinquish the chairman's time to Chairman Camp.
Chairman Camp is recognized to speak to the bill. Chairman's time.
Thank
Chair Lady
you.
Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Powell. We all have the choice on who does our hair. Let's be realistic. But there are times when we're having family photos, we're having maybe headshots, we're going to some event, we want to look a little better than we normally do. It's not always feasible to have a cosmetologist come see you. I know the cosmetologist who works on me every 6 to 8 weeks, she charges a good bit of money for time. Quite honestly, $100 an hour basically is what it costs to be with a good cosmetologist and monopolize his or her time. So it's not always feasible. And there are a number of individuals who are operating in this state right this minute who are doing hair and makeup. If you go to the University of Georgia, there are a litany of young men and young women who will do hair and makeup. They would love to have a business license. They would love to report that they have income. They are working with students and people in the area, making money doing hair and makeup. Again, we're not talking about flat irons or curling irons. We're not talking about chemicals. If you look in the bill on lines 32 through 39, there seemed to be a little confusion on what the bill actually does. It says blow dry styling means the practice of only shampooing, conditioning, drying, arranging, curling, straightening hair. But then it goes on to say such items, let's see. Okay, mechanical devices on line 35 shall not include any flat irons or curling irons. Of course, we've all had our hair blown dry and it's been a little warm. Quite honestly, if you have an issue with your hair burning, you need to go see a cosmetologist. If you have an issue with your scalp, go see a cosmetologist. If you have an issue with a skin condition or you feel like you may have something going on with your body, go see a cosmetologist. I'm going to tell you, if you have an open sore or you have a skin condition, they're not going to work on you. They're going to tell you to go to a dermatologist. I can tell you right now, more than likely, I can guess that the individuals that are working without a license doing hair and makeup, right now, they're going to tell you to do the same thing because they're not going to want to get involved in that. Something interesting that Representative Maynor mentioned was hair braiding. Hair braiding was actually carved outside of the cosmetology license in 2006 and has never been included again. So any of us could go and have our hair braided right now. And that person very likely is not going to be licensed as a cosmetologist. I know many people do this and they feel safe in that environment. I know many people, my daughter included, who's had hair and makeup done, and quite honestly, they did a wonderful job. They came very highly referenced. She felt they did a very clean job. They cleaned their instruments. Now, hiring who you hire, we've all hired house painters, we've all hired people to come in and do various things in our homes, and if they didn't do a good job, we would not hire them again, and we certainly would not recommend them. So just because someone has a shingle on their door saying that they'll do your hair and makeup, and they're honestly advertising they're not licensed. This is disclosed fully. People can make the choice on what they're going to do, if they're going to hire this person or not to do their hair and makeup. I would like to discuss for a moment a real life person. I wish I had had a chance to call him in advance because I think he'd been very excited to hear me say his name. But his name is Jamarian Bailey, and he lives in Thomaston, Georgia. He is a nursing and business student, and for some reason he got very interested in makeup. He actually has partnered with a company, and he has developed a makeup brand that he sells, and it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, but Jamarian does not have a cosmetology license. So if I went to see Jamarian and ask him to apply some of these beautiful, beautiful, vibrant colors that he has developed with a company that does this, he could not apply them to me legally because he doesn't have a cosmetology license. This is a work bill. This is a bill that's going to get people making money. This is an opportunity for people to do things they're good at already that are making YouTube videos. I mean, let's face it, there are people probably making more money on YouTube videos than they are actually doing people's hair. So, but this is an opportunity for people to express themselves, to share their skill set, and quite honestly, get individuals working, which to me is the most important thing we can do as a state, is get out of the way of people supporting themselves and taking care of their families. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield the rest of my time to Representative Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just a couple of quick points I wanted to mention here before we wrap up. I think that we would be remiss if we didn't recognize that the blow drying of hair, the application of makeup, it is a burgeoning and growing cottage industry in our state, particularly during COVID, when a lot of folks were housebound, they weren't going out far. Folks, this is happening right now across the state. Lots of individuals, I know this because I've had them in my office, they are predominantly representative of what I would call lower income, a lower income segment of our society, predominantly minority. All we're doing is saying, you don't have to do it in secret now. These simple steps of blow drying hair and applying makeup, low risk activities. I know we've heard some scary facts and figures today. We've heard some things that kind of frighten us. That we're going to catch diseases, have our limbs amputated from touching doorknobs. Let's be very clear about facts, because facts don't lie. The facts are that 13 other states have deregulated these practices. And there has not been one iota, not one bit of data to show any increase in transmittable diseases, not MRSA, not any of the host of diseases that were mentioned in this well today. I think facts and figures are important. I think it's when you start scaring folks with that sort of information, it's important, very, very important to put it in perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to remember that we are in the business of making it easier to work in the state of Georgia. We know that on this particular issue, that the most over-regulated, perhaps, industry is the cosmetology industry at a rate that far exceeds that of anything else. You don't have to be licensed to be a chef in this state, right? So the folks that are preparing your food each day, and when you visit a restaurant, those individuals don't have to be licensed. I encourage you to consider an affirmative vote for this pro-business, small business, pro-woman piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Ladies, yielded the well. Good discussion, House. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing with the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? For what purposes Representative Jasmine Clark rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I have a PhD in microbiology? I am very good at research. And even if I didn't have a PhD in microbiology, I'm very good at using Google. And it does not take long to do a Google search to see that, yes, MRSA is one of the bacteria that can be found on makeup brushes. And MRSA is very dangerous, contagious, and can be deadly. Is that not true, Mr. Speaker?
I think that's true. I've read your resume. You're a smart representative. For what purposes Representative Sharp arise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I'm a big supporter of entrepreneurship? Also, I'm very concerned that there's no oversight in this particular bill that we're talking about. There's no basic training that includes sanitation. Also, I'm concerned about the liability that will be put on these new business owners in case something happens. So for the record, I'm just saying that I would be okay with a small amount of hours at least to train them in what they are doing and also sanitation. But if not, I'm totally against this bill for the record. Is that not true?
I believe that's true. So the gentleman states. For what purposes Representative Byrd rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true we should be more concerned about a doctor mutilating our children than the licensure of cosmetology?
I'm sure the lady has her opinion. For what purpose does Representative Gladney rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, sir.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I am one of 6 million Americans who have been diagnosed with an environmental allergen?
I'm sure the lady understands and appreciates, and I appreciate her diagnosis.
Do you further yield, sir?
Parliamentary inquiry. I'll
Yes,
yield,
sir.
but
Yes, sir.
you may want to do an inquiry, but
yes,
I'm not.
Yes, parliamentary inquiry,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. I'll
yes,
state
sir.
your
Thank
inquiry.
you so much, sir. Thank you. In the event that a practitioner applying one of these services, whether it be makeup that's made out of a product that's based in almond butter, or shampoo that's made out of a product based in natural coconut oil, there is the potential of me having an exposure of anaphylactic shock in any other consumer that would have visited that particular establishment. Is that not true, sir?
Yes, ma'am, that's true, and that's what's important about personal responsibility.
Thank
You got to
you,
make
sir.
sure where you go. For what purposes Representative Ridley rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that I also have one of those 3-letter degrees called a GED, and these people have, the people that's opposing this bill have scared this House so bad that they're going to end up putting cosmetology out of business because half the people back there don't even want to go get a haircut anymore.
Is that not true? Yeah, I think that's true, if you so state. All members voted. I think we've talked this one, debated it very well. All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 354, the yeas are 96, the nays are 76. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Representative McCullum is recognized for a motion. Representative McCullum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, you have on your desk an amendment from our colleagues from the other side of the Senate. And so I have one amendment that I need to withdraw, AM 390420. HB 516. It was a bill that came through the House and went over to the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the captions? Gentlemen will step down.
House Bill 516 to be entitled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 2, Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the exercise of power to contract by the Department of Transportation.
Representative McCullum is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment. And identify your amendment that you're going to be speaking to.
I agree to the Senate sub as amendment by the House. It's AM 390424, HB 516. I still missed it.
Now you want to explain your amendment?
The amendment is amended. Let me
Okay. The amendments are on your desk. Hold it for just for a second. You're fine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You'll explain it, and we'll be in a good place. So the gentleman is recognized now to explain his amendment.
So I'm agreeing to the substitute HB 516, the Senate substitute as amended by the House, and I'm deleting lines 220 through 228 on HB 516.
The amendment that the gentleman is agreeing to is AM 390424, correct?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Now, and I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? Chair here is noting the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 516 as amended by this House. All those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? For what purposes Chairman Jaspers rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I just want to thank the gentleman for the work he's done on this departmental bill for the Department of Transportation. And is it not true that in this bill there's Wayfinder kiosk language that has been agreed upon? They'll allow 30 of them on state highways within the city of Atlanta, and as a sunset for their application. And is it not true in Section 4 of this bill that there's a key part that will help the sheriff of Union County close a road that is undrivable for big trucks in hazardous situations? It's not true, sir.
I'm sure the Chairman of Transportation understands every aspect of this bill and the issues you just spoke to. For what purposes will Park rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry, sir.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that there's been some confusion about this, but with the amendment that we are voting on, all parties are in agreement, including the city of Atlanta?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for your clarification. For what purposes Representative Jasmine Clark rise?
Thank Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that my original no vote was because I had no idea what was going on and it did not seem like anybody knew what was going on? But now that it has been clarified, I have switched my vote to yes.
I'm glad you feel better. Me too. Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion to agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House Bill 516, the yeas are 163, the nays are 6. The gentleman's motion to agree is approved. Chairman Newton is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree on House Bill 1090, that we agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1090 to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to imposition rate computation, exemptions, and credits relative to income taxes.
Chairman Newton is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. If you'll remember, House Bill 1090 passed this body 160 to 1. It's a bill that deals with young Georgians who are aging out of the foster care program. It's something we started a couple of years ago to help with both mentorship, with nutrition, educational expenses, housing. These are very vulnerable individuals that have been involved in the foster care system. Once again, I said it passed 160 to 1 in the House. The Senate did make a few changes where it passed 50 to nothing. They corrected a couple of items on the ages. A lot of these children get a little behind in getting their high school degree and may need help getting a GED. They may not get that until 21, so if they're going to get help with technical school or college, they may need help up to age 25. So we did expand a little bit the number of individuals that could be helped. We did clarify some of the definitions like mentorship services that are so important in helping these former foster children make the successful transition to adulthood. The Senate also added some additional guardrails to make sure that when tax credit funds are donated, that they will definitely know that a minimum of 80% will be spent actually helping the children and not going to just administrative overhead. The Senate did make one change that we'd like to change in the amendment. The amendment is AM 500086. It's on your desks. They did raise the amount from $20 million cap that we have currently to a $30 million cap. On further discussion in Ways and Means and amongst our body, we feel like since the $20 million cap wasn't reached last year, that the wisest course is to keep the cap at $20 million. So that's all the amendment does, is keep the cap where it is, that the Senate was attempting to change. And obviously in the next year or two, if it turns out the program is fully subscribed and we get good feedback on it, we can certainly then look to expand the cap. So that's the bill and the amendment, sir.
Gentlemen, you have a question?
Certainly.
Representative Fry to your left has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
On lines 33 and 34, it seems to add a business enterprise, meaning any insurance company or the headquarters of any insurance company. And I missed that Ways and Means meeting, but is that giving the insurance companies access to this tax credit as well as private individuals?
It does. It does. We already had, like a lot of our systems, we allow Subchapter S and other partnerships to participate. But that's just income taxes, that you can send a portion of your income tax obligation to some of these organizations. This does allow insurance companies that don't pay income taxes, they pay premium taxes. It allows them to participate. That was in the original House bill, and that was unchanged in the Senate.
Okay. Do you further yield?
Sir?
Do you further yield?
Sure, yes.
Do you feel like it's good policy to give insurance companies a tax credit in today's business climate?
Well, I certainly would agree with the gentleman. The premise is that insurance companies are not, they're not receiving a tax credit in this. It's costing them the same amount of money it would cost whether they sent their taxes to the Department of Insurance, the same way another company might send their income taxes to the Department of Revenue. The cost to the insurance company saves them no money at all. This just allows them to designate a portion of their tax obligation that they're going to have to pay one way or the other. It allows them to designate a location, or in this case, a cause that can be beneficial to Georgians.
Okay, further clarification? Question? Friendly question. It's all been friendly, by the way. I really just want to make sure that I understand that the insurance companies are not getting any break because of this great bill that helps the foster kids out in the foster program in this state. Is that correct?
You're absolutely correct in that, and I appreciate the question. The insurance companies are not saving any money with this program. This is just an effort to make sure we can get the adequate help to the children that need it without any benefit to an insurance company.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, yield for another. Well, you have no further questions.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate your support.
Good discussion, good clarification. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to HB 1090 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion to agree to the Senate sub as amended by the House, the yeas are 171, the nays are 0. The House has agreed to House Bill 1090. As amended by the House. Representative Jan Jones is recognized for a motion. Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1010.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1010 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 20 of Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to personnel administration relative to public officers and employees.
Representative Jones is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House Bill 1010 changes the paid parental leave for state employees only from 3 weeks to 6 weeks. The Senate made a small change on the back of your sheet, the last 2 lines, that simply requires the school system or the state to provide notice of the benefit yearly. That would happen during the enrollment period when you're informed of other benefits. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1010, All those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 1010, the yeas are 149, the nays are 17, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute of House Bill 1010. Representative Lisa Hagan is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a motion that this House agrees to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1026 as amended by the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1026 to be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state symbols so as to designate the Southeast Georgia Soapbox Derby as official Soapbox Derby of the state of Georgia.
Representative Hagan is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The original soapbox derby language remains in this bill. However, there was a Senate substitute, and I cannot tell you how honored I am to have had this added to this substitute because of the name of it. This is the Richard H. Smith Georgia CHIPS Advancement in Research and Economic Development Act. It provides for grant and loan programs to attract and incentivize computer chip, or if you're of the smarter side of the house, whichever one you want to call that, semiconductors, to locate in Georgia and to encourage growth and expansion of those that are already here. A consortium would be set up under the umbrella of the One Georgia Authority to establish the grant program and to serve as an advisory panel. This is a great economic development measure named for a dear colleague of ours that we continue to miss to this day. Mr. Speaker, I would be happy to yield the well if there are no questions, and I ask for your favorable vote on this Senate sub to this bill. Thank you.
The lady has a couple of questions, if you'll yield.
Yes,
Representative Reese, to your left in the back of the room, has a question. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentlewoman yield?
I do.
Isn't it true that Representative Smith was a big proponent of the CHIP Acts and the CHIP process that we have going on right now in Columbus, Georgia? And I can just imagine that he is absolutely tickled that we were able to get this done because this was a high priority to him.
I understand that's true, and I absolutely think he would be thrilled to know that we have this measure here.
And will you further yield?
Sure.
And I just want to thank you for presenting this today and say that I certainly am in strong support of this amendment.
Thank you, Representative.
Lady, yield for another question.
Yes, sir.
Representative Seabaugh, to your left.
Does the lady yield?
Absolutely.
Is it not true that as a director of the Marietta Soapbox Derby for 10 years, and we sent 300 kids, we had 300 kids participate in that program and sent 30 kids to Akron, Ohio to represent our state in the World Championship? And is it not true that this is a character building program, and I'm very excited that you finally got this bill through?
Thank you. That is true, and I do appreciate your support on this and your involvement in the Soapbox Derby throughout the years. It's a good program for young people.
Lady has a couple more questions. She'll yield.
I'll yield for one more, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Williams, to your left. Representative Al Williams knows about the Soapbox Derby. Gentleman's recognized.
The gentle lady
Of
yield.
course.
Is it not true that tourism has increased terrifically in your town because of the appearance of an international champion named Representative Al Williams?
There is no doubt.
Thank you. The lady knows what she speaks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1026. House Bill 1026. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the yeas are 169, the nays are 0. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1026. Congratulations. I didn't know we had an international champion, but I know it now. Representative Gunther is recognized for a motion. Representative Stan Gunther.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we accept the Senate substitute to House Bill 456.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 456 to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 32 entitled 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding municipal courts.
Chairman Gunther is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate substitute, House Bill 456, was a bill that came through here a while back. I believe it was nearly unanimous, if not unanimous, when it voted out. This sets the minimum term of a municipal court judge at 2 years, and also has provisions in it if there's a breach of the contract, how to shorten that. Basically, there was a Scrivener's error. It's on the front page. It was in the House version, 3622 was the statute that was listed, and the statute should have been 3632. That's the only change in the bill, and I'll stand for any questions.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 456. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to Senate substitute a House Bill 456, the yeas are 170 and nay is 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute a House Bill 456. Representative Houston Gaines is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1201.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 1201, 1201?
House Bill 1201 to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1710, 21, and 35, 3, 37 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating vacating of sentence for trafficking victim defendants and review of individuals' criminal history record information.
Representative Gaines is recognized to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House will remember we passed this bill unanimously to help victims of human trafficking and other victims across the state. The Senate added just some agency language on behalf of the Department of Human Services, and it passed the Senate unanimously as well. Mr. Speaker, and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Yield the well.
Gentleman has no questions. He's yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1201, 1201. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 1201, the yeas are 169, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute. For what? Chair recognizes Representative Kelly for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute on House Bill 1203.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1203 to be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 7, and Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to dispossessory proceedings.
Representative Kelly is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you'll remember, House Bill 1203 passed this body with just one no vote. The only change in the Senate is they changed the effective date from July 1st to effective upon the governor's signature. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1203, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute on House Bill 1203, the yeas are 171, the nays are 0. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1203. Chairman Carson is recognized for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House insist on our position in regard to Senate Bill 240.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
Senate Bill 240 to be entitled an act to amend Title 47 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to retirement and pensions so as to revise the minimum and maximum allowable benefits.
Chair recognizes Representative Carson to explain his motion.
Folks, this is I know the hour is late, but this is a very important bill. It's in regard to two areas of insisting on our position from last year in regard to identifying classified employees within public school systems who are not extended Social Security disability benefit coverage. This is just a data collection exercise. The second part of the bill has to do with getting our charter school retirement options in compliance with Department of Treasury. That's really all the bill does, and I just ask that the House insist on our position.
The gentleman has no questions. The gentleman has yielded the will. Representative Carson has moved that the House insist on its position on Senate Bill 240. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the House has insisted on its position on Senate Bill 240. Chairman Leverett is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1223.
Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 1223 to be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 12 of Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated the Georgia Soil Amendment Act of 1976.
Representative Leverett is recognized to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a bill we passed off the floor several weeks ago. It regulates the application of soil amendments to land in a very specific way. It basically prohibits continued application of soil amendments on land where there is a consent order or some EPD finding that there has been some water or soil contamination on that property. If that happens and there's a notice of violation issued, then the Department of Agriculture can issue a notice to the landowner or the operator prohibiting them from further application of soil amendments until the existing violation is cleared. The bill as it was amended in the Senate still substantially does the same thing. We just changed some of the wording and tried to clarify a few issues to address some concerns people expressed, but it's basically the same impact and the same effect, and I would request your approving the motion.
Gentleman has no questions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you would, please vote green on the motion. Thank you.
Gentleman is yielded the will. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1223. All those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1223, the yeas are 169, the nays are 2. The House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1223.